Right. So it's my pleasure today to begin our alumni panel session entitled From Campus to Career, Alumni Success Stories, which is part of the Fall 2023 PennWest Career Readiness Series. And we have 5 wonderful alumni with us today. So I'm going to go ahead and let them each introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Flynn. I'm right now working at the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit 5, which we were an Edinburgh student, you've been on the Edinburgh campus. It's right next door to campus, kind of tucked back from the road near the police station. So they're pretty close by, didn't go very far. And I am the Marketing and Communications Specialist. I graduated in December of 2021. And I was a graphic and interactive design major. I was also involved with giving some of the tours for the art department. I worked as the art office, like student secretary, and I was part of graphic design club as well.
Thanks so much, Hannah. Next we have Maddie.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie Schilk. I am currently a human resource generalist at American Axle and Manufacturing in my hometown in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. I graduated from PennWest Clarion in December of 2022. I was a human resource management major and a business management major. Some things I was involved in campus. I was the Society for Human Resource Management and the Society for Advancement of Management president. I was also the Clarion Student Association chairperson or CSA chairperson. And I also worked as a peer career coach at the Center for Career and Professional Development.
Love that. Career Center student employee back here as an alum to share your story. Okay, next up is Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Schaefer. I am currently working at Erie Insurance as a associate software engineer. I graduated from Edinburgh this past May with a degree in computer science, and very involved with Chi Alpha Campus Ministries while I was there as a student leader and also vice president of that club while I was there during my time.
Thanks, Nicole. And Haven. Next.
Hi everyone, I'm Haven Schaefer. I am currently working for the National MS Society as a manager of emerging events. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania and work out of my home there. I graduated in May of 2023 and I did not go to Clarion on campus. I went to PennWest Clarion online while I worked full time. So don't have any campus extracurriculars, but didn't really fit my schedule. So
thank you for being with us. And then our last panelist to introduce themselves is Tyler, and then after that we'll move into the next question.
Hi everyone, I'm Tyler Steffi. I'm a data and analytics specialist at Erie Insurance. I work in the commercial products division. I graduated this past December from PennWest Edinburgh. And during my time in college, I didn't really have a ton of time for extracurriculars since I was working full time. But I did tutor math and statistics, and I was a member of Pi Mu Epsilon, which is an honorary math society.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your introduction. We appreciate getting to know a little bit about you and your background. So starting with this question, diving in, we'll start with Hannah. And, each of you, have your own experiences and your journeys have been different to this point, and that's what students are interested in, your journey, so they can understand and identify and relate to help them in their own journey. So thinking back to when you were searching for jobs in the job search process, what strategies did you use to find and apply for jobs? So again, starting with Hannah, tell us about that.
So I think the biggest strategy that I had was just like reaching out online, especially. I think that's where most things lie these days, is going through different online services. I spent a lot of time on Indeed. That was a big one for me. Getting my LinkedIn set up as well was a pretty important step, because I feel like that's where it's a really good place that once you graduate to keep up with what your other peers are doing once you all scatter in different directions. And the campus was at Edinburgh was a really big help getting me prepared. We do have in the art department for graphic design majors, we have a senior projects course that that entire class was set up for us to have dedicated time to be working on our resumes, to be working on our portfolios. So that's really important. In like a more art field, is to have all of the portfolio projects and stuff ready to showcase. So it's a little more different process than most majors I think go through, but that was really incredible to have. And it was during the pandemic when I was graduating, most of my classes were still online. So I didn't end up doing like the physical portfolio that most of the students that came before me had, but it kind of ended up paying off in its own way because it ended up being like a scrollable PDF portfolio, which I found a lot more accessible once I got into actually job hunting. I could just email it. I didn't have to show up and like get through the door for the interview first. I could say, here's my resume and my portfolio right into their inbox. So I found that was worked really well. And it just reaching out in your community too helped me a lot. Actually, how I got in with the IU was through someone I was talking to just in the local community had worked there. And she knew that I wasn't working at the time, and she had brought up like, hey, have you ever looked into the intermediate unit? I was like, I'd been there for fingerprinting when I was on campus, but I didn't know what all they do. So she had told me to check out their specific website too. And they have a ton of jobs, most of them under education and like more secretarial positions. So I was originally looking at one of those, but ended up a few weeks after she had pointed me in that direction, it came up that they needed a new marketing person. So it kind of all fell together really perfectly, which was awesome. So yeah, definitely just like I would say my best advice on that is just to like keep your options open for what you're doing. Don't narrow into just one way, because you never know how you're going to, like, who you're going to run into, who's going to have that next lead for you.
Yes, thank you so much. And that's all fantastic advice. So Maddie, based on your experience in, building off of Hannah's, what she just said, tell us what your experience was.
Absolutely. And I think Hannah touched a little bit on, networking. I do have three different experiences. Two of them are internship experiences. However, I kind of want to touch on those because I think that having those experiences is what prepared me when it did come from campus to career. So my first internship, it was a summer going into sophomore year. I networked. So I reached out to a connection that I had made in high school. She was super involved with, all the companies, all the businesses in my area. I explained to her, I'm looking for a human resource internship. I know you have these connections. Is there anything you can do to help me? I gave her my resume, my letter of interest, and she basically sent it out to companies. I had a call and I had an interview with a company, and they gave me a job offer for an internship right on the spot. So that was my first, experience. Networking for sure played a role in that. My second internship, which was 2 years later, I was at that first internship for 2 summers. The second internship, my goal was to move out of my home state for the summer. So that one was a little trickier. I couldn't necessarily network like I did the first one. I utilized Network, Handshake, Indeed, and I probably applied to like 75 different internships. It was very discouraging because I kept applying, wasn't hearing back. One tool that I did utilize kind of halfway through my process there, I realized it a little too late, is utilizing an Excel document and keeping track of what I applied to, when I applied, and then like the deadline, when the application closed, so I can like expect when to hear back from people. So I did that halfway through, but I ended up getting an internship in Virginia, so that I met my goal, and that was super exciting. So that one was definitely utilizing LinkedIn, Handshake, and Indeed for that. My full-time job, so my third experience, I networked. So it kind of happened. I guess it's not necessarily an ideal, or it's an ideal thing, but it's a little rare. My uncle actually works at the company that I currently work at. He told me that they were hiring for an HR person, is what he said. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not interested in completely going through the job search yet, but I'll put my name in because why not? It's an opportunity in my hometown. So that's how I landed this job. So I guess my takeaway in general is I think networking is extremely important. I think that gets your foot in the door, that gets the conversation started. However, having, the skills on your resume and also being able to share experiences, like experiences you've had on campus or in other internships, also plays, a huge role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we're hearing, some reoccurring themes, which is amazing because That's obviously a best practice. So Nicole, let's talk about your journey and, take us through that process for you.
Yeah. So my job search process started with looking for internships. And I knew I wanted to stay around the area of Edinburgh. So I wanted to get into Erie Insurance because it's just a great company, especially for going into tech. And so I used both LinkedIn and the company website. I applied through the company website, and that's how I got all the information. But before that, I was mentored by someone who had worked at Erie Insurance, and she kind of just prepared me, taught me how to network, taught me how to be a woman in technology, and kind of prepared me in those ways. And then she was the one to encourage me to apply for the internship, helped me kind of with the process and what that looked like. So I did end up sending my resume and cover letter to the Career Center at Edinburgh before I applied, just to make it all squeaky clean and good. So that was really great to take those corrections before applying. And so I would say it's a conglomerate of a lot of different things of mentoring, of connections, of using different platforms like LinkedIn to get that job.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's not one thing. It's a combination of a lot of different things. So Haven, what were those combination of things for you?
Yeah, so kind of touching on what Hannah, Maddie, and Nicole also touched on, I got my job in a very different way. I started with my current organization as a volunteer. So I had met a lot of people, a lot of staff members, other volunteers, stakeholders in the organization, that kind of stuff. So it was quite the light bulb moment for me of this is what I want to do someday. So I just kind of continued to volunteer, continue to get my feet wet and other different things throughout the organization. And from there, I had the opportunity to do an internship with them. So I was a marketing and development intern. And for those that aren't familiar, nonprofit development is the fundraising, event planning, community engagement, corporate engagement side of things. So from there, I, did some more work with that, got some more experience, and then got really lucky through networking and being involved with the organization for a seasonal position with the MS Society. So I took that on and then went part-time and then full-time from there. So really networking for me in that aspect, but looking at other things, I think Indeed is a really big tool to use for job hunting, and LinkedIn as well. And I think LinkedIn is where a lot of the recruiters are, as well as on Indeed as well. And just that's really good stuff to use.
Thank you so much. So experiential learning comes in different forms. It can be internships, volunteer work. So that's something, again, that we're hearing about, just different types of experiences. So Tyler, you're wrapping up this question for us. So we're excited to hear your part of this, the process that you went through.
So I had started my job search process just looking for internships my last year of school. I primarily just went on job search engines, LinkedIn, Indeed, Handshake, and just looked for relevant internships that applied to what I was studying at the time. And of the different tools, I found that Handshake was the most helpful for me, just because I feel like it has a really convenient platform for people just starting out their careers compared to Indeed or LinkedIn. I did use LinkedIn for networking with some companies in the Harrisburg area at the time. However, I got my first interview with Erie Insurance for an internship through Handshake. And so I ultimately got that internship. And from there, I worked throughout the summer and tried to do the best I could. And they actually offered me a full-time job from there. So that kind of ended my job search process at that point. So I already had a job ready to go before I even graduated. But I would definitely say that networking and just having your options open is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, I think that's, some of the takeaways is, having your options open, being flexible, the variety of different strategies, with a reoccurring theme of networking, experiential learning, different forms. So thank you for detailing all that for us. That was very beneficial. So I'm going to hand it over to Christina for the next question.
Okay, everyone. So we learned kind of how you landed, where you did land, where you ended up in your careers at this point. But can you tell us, how did you prepare for those applications, the interview process? How did you get ready for that process? So we'll go ahead and start with Hannah.
I'll touch a little more on how I prepared for the IU specifically, but I'd say one thing as far as like preparing your applications too, and I think Maddie mentioned it a little bit in her last answer, just getting your applications out there, I think is so big. I think you have a tendency to like want to perfect it for each and every job, and that can end up really time consuming. And it does help if it's the one that you're like really super interested in and you think it's the perfect fit. I think you should absolutely put your best foot forward. But there's a lot of opportunities, and especially when you're dealing with applying online and you can see on Indeed and LinkedIn like 170 other people have done this, and I think a lot of them tend to like job offers tend to come up and like be taken offline really quickly. So I think just trying to get it out there, get your application, get your resumes out there as much as you can and as like thorough as you can is really the one of the better things that worked for me, because I probably haven't, I could like when I go in my Indeed still it tells me like how many jobs that I had applied through and like put my resume on it, and they make it so easy. You can just keep it on there and just apply and it sends your resume off for you. So I think definitely getting yourself out there as much as you can um, is really big. With the IU specifically, I did um, looked over my portfolio again was another really big thing for me because I hadn't looked at it. I had some time in between when I started at the IU and when I graduated. There was about a year and a half that I was kind of lingering in job hunting. So I got fresh eyes on my portfolio again to prepare, which was really good because I caught some things that I didn't catch during my senior year of college. There was a lot going on then. So it was nice to kind of take like a fresh set of eyes after having that like break away from it and to be able to like find enjoyment and like love for what I was doing again without it feeling so stressful like it starts to when you're in your last couple years. So that was one thing that was really huge for me in terms of preparation. And then just talking with my faculty as well. I have the art department on the Edinburgh campus is just incredible, and they all had such good advice and such like encouraging words to just kind of keep my spirits up during all of that. So it was really helpful there too.
Thank you for sharing. That's great to hear about the fresh eyes on your portfolio was beneficial. There is a lot that goes on during that senior year, so it's good to be able to take a look at that after graduating. Okay, so Maddie, tell us about your preparation. What did you do to get ready for your job search?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to start. I cannot say enough positive things about the Career Center. That was my absolute go-to. I think I did it all from resume reviews, letter of interest building, mock interviews, job search strategies, literally everything. I did as much as I could. I was involved, freshman year. I had the drive I wanted to go in there. I wanted to, start building and being prepared for my career. So I guess my biggest recommendation, whether you are a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, it is never too late. I just highly recommend getting involved with the Career Center. The tools that I've learned and all the resources that they have given me, it has truly made me successful and made me the most prepared I possibly could be for, my internship searches, my full-time job. By the time after all my internship searches and going through this process before every single internship, every single interview, I felt prepared when it came to my full-time job. So I kind of got my nerves out the first time doing my internship, the second time doing my interview for my internship. And when it came to my full-time job, after all of the practices, after all the mock interviews at the Career Center, I felt very prepared and confident with the tools I was using there. I also want to say, create a relationship, with your career coach, with your mentor. I truly wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for mine. And that's just something that I'll live by. So I think creating those relationships is also key in helping you prepare for that.
Thank you, Maddie. We love the praise, and we did not ask her to say those things, just to clarify, but we're really happy to hear that it was so useful for you. So Nicole, what were your preparation strategies like?
Yeah, so I only really had to prepare once because, like Tyler, my internship led to a full-time offer after graduation. And so I mainly researched the company heavily. And I took notes and wrote down different talking points that I can bring up and ask questions on in the interview process. I also looked up different common interview questions, just like the generic questions, and then also like industry specific, like technology specific questions that I could prepare as much as possible. And I know with my interview, there was a recording at first. It was a 3-minute tell us about yourself and answer a few questions. And then I had 2 more interviews after that through Zoom. And so being prepared for all of that, try to get prepared as much as possible. But I think leaning on the different research and preparation was definitely helpful as much as I could for those interviews.
Thank you for sharing. So far we've got a great toolkit of advice, refreshing that resume and portfolio, using the Career Center resources, and making sure that you prep by researching the company. So next up, Haven, do you have anything you'd like to add to that toolkit?
Yeah, touching on both what Maddie and Nicole said. I was in a little bit of a different boat, but not at the same time. So when I was applying for different jobs throughout my organization, I was applying to different teams. So I wasn't interviewing with the same people that I worked with. So I did a lot of internal research throughout my company, just making sure I'm really understanding the jobs, making sure that I'm writing down questions I have beforehand, and then writing them down throughout the interview. If I was looking for a job outside of the organization, I would really update my resume and keep it updated, and probably upload that to Indeed just so it's out there. I would also just kind of figure out what I'm interested in doing and look at the companies that I'm interested in working with, or companies that are similar to the work that I do, and seeing where I can go from there. I think it is really important to kind of keep your options open, but if you really like something, to hone in on that and try to build your skills with that. As far as being on campus and using campus resources, I also really loved the Career Center. And although I was online, they were completely accessible online in every single way for all kinds of things. Big shout out to Dr. Lewis, because she helped me with lots of things, resumes, mock interviews, advice, things like that. She was just truly the best. So thank you, Dr. Lewis. Shameless plug there. But just kind of using them, even if you use them once, even if you use them 100 times, you're going to walk away with something. There's no doubt there. So I would just say, like, even if you're annoyed, even if you're afraid, even if you don't want to do it, even if you have to do it for a class thing, because I've been there, just do it, because I think you'll always leave with a positive out of it. And then you might find that, oh, like that wasn't so bad, and I can use these different resources. So
thank you. Again, we love the positive feedback, and you're excited to hear how successful you've been using our resources, but it's also good to keep in mind researching other companies and organizations that do the same thing that you're interested in. So also a great strategy there. So Tyler, you're going to wrap up this question for us about how did you prepare for that process of interviewing and applying?
Yeah, so prior to filling out applications, I was always making sure that my resume was up to date. And transitioning from college to career, there's not a ton of work experience that I can put on my resume. So I found that including relevant coursework and projects I've done in classes that would be relevant to jobs was really helpful for employers to see, as well as adding any leadership experience as well. And then when I did have my interview with Erie Insurance, I was constantly preparing before my interviews, mock interviews with friends, looking at myself in the mirror and asking myself questions and answering them, stuff like that. But most importantly, I found that going into interviews with a positive attitude and confidence is probably the biggest thing that can help you in the interview. Because I like to think of them more as a conversation and not necessarily an interrogation as to who you are, because it is a two-sided process where you should be asking them questions and not just them asking you questions. And I feel like asking them questions will really help you see if it is a job that you want to take if they do give you an offer, and being able to get an idea of their culture and values and stuff like that. So definitely recommend seeing it more as a two-sided process.
Thank you, Tyler. Yes, that makes perfect sense to remind ourselves that it's not just you trying to get a job, but also making sure, do you want to be a part of this organization in this position? So I'm going to hand it back to Bridget to ask our next question.
Thank you, Christina. So my next question for the panelists, I want you to think about, the transition part. With any transition, there are some amazing things, but there can also present some challenges, right? Change can be challenging. So when you're thinking back to your transition, what were the biggest challenges you faced when transitioning from college to career? Things that maybe, you think that our audience, it would be good for them to understand about that transition. So we'll ask Hannah that first.
So this kind of touches on a little bit what Tyler already started mentioning, but honestly, the biggest challenge for me was genuinely just not getting discouraged and trying to like keep motivation in yourself, because like I said before, I didn't start right away. I haven't been at the IU super long yet, but I've been graduated since 2021, so there was a lot of like in between time that I had that I was still like regularly applying and searching, but I was doing something that wasn't in the field that I went to school for in the meantime, which was fine. It wasn't bad, and we all need to get by in the meantime. So that was just trying to keep that like confidence in myself and like my abilities and what I had learned in school. And there was a time where I had been at a different position that was in my field, where I started out, and it was the first one I interviewed for, and I was like, this is great. This is like, I got a job I'm in, and it didn't end up working out. I just didn't feel like I was the right fit there, and I didn't like get along with some of the people. So I think kind of what Tyler said there too about like making sure that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, and seeing like, do I work here? I mean, obviously when you're getting out of school, you want the job, you need the money, the cash flow to start coming in. So it's a give and take, but I think it's so important to remember, like, even if you have those where like, oh, this one didn't fit, I can remember thinking like, maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be, maybe this major wasn't right for me, and really it was just that I wasn't at the right place at the right time, and that I had to persevere and like keep the confidence in myself to keep looking and to keep going when those opportunities did arise. And now I absolutely love what I'm doing. It's the perfect like cultural fit. I feel like so valued. Everyone's usually really happy with everything that I'm working on, and it just feels like where I'm meant to be. So I would say just don't get discouraged if even your first couple don't go exactly as you're picturing, that it doesn't end there, and there's a lot of life to live, and you can keep searching for the next better thing that's going to work for you.
Thank you. And that's, those are fantastic points that, Tyler made before in the last question. You're making in this question, understanding the culture and is it a right fit for you? And sometimes that can be hard to understand, or not think of, as somebody transitioning from college to career. So Maddie, for you thinking about that transition, what did you feel was most challenging for you?
So I want to say communication, and not necessarily like communicating to other people, like talking with people, presenting. Don't get me wrong, that's still something that I like to work on, but that wasn't necessarily the biggest challenge. This one was a little unexpected. So I guess learning to communicate my needs, learning how to delegate, learning how to take lead, learning how to communicate that if you don't do this portion of your job, it affects my job. So I guess being in HR and, even doing payroll and things like that, a lot of things depend on other people before it hits me. So I guess learning to communicate that. So the biggest thing that I would recommend is taking on leadership roles. So I'm not necessarily in a leadership role. I'm not a manager. I'm a generalist. However, I feel like leadership roles at school and college kind of helped me for this. I think it helped prepare me. I did, like I said, leadership roles in clubs, but even in projects and classes, take on that leadership role. And I think that is what really helped me. However, it's still something that I'm working on, and it's still a challenge as I am freshly into my career. But I would say the number one thing is communication. Something if you can take that and work on that while you're still in school, I think that'll help you for sure whenever you get to your career.
Thank you so much for that. And I love the point that you made that this is something that you experienced, but here's what you're doing now that you could work on that, from your point of view. And that's a great example of, the clubs and organizations, leadership roles, or even, at your places of employment, taking on maybe initiative, like even work study positions. There might be opportunities to do that through work study. So, those are fantastic points. So thank you. So, Nicole, as you made your transition in your new journey, what were some things for you that you found out?
Absolutely. So, this degree was actually my second degree from Edinburgh. So I kind of switched majors, switched career paths. So I think that was one of the biggest transitions, was just a brand new field that I had no idea about. So I would also say the wait in between interviewing and hearing back, because you are at the company's discretion and in their timeline. So a lot of the times it would be weeks before I would hear back. Even if it was good, I got the job. It would take a while. So the patience and the peace that was needed was definitely a challenge for sure. And then getting the job, I think the biggest challenge that I thought that I needed to know everything right when I started, and that was quickly squashed by my manager saying no, we'll teach you everything. I was like, wait, so I don't need to know everything about the job right now. And so that was really helpful. What I thought was going to be a challenge actually was a big encouragement of no, we're here to learn and grow, and we'll help you. And so that was some of the challenges, but definitely turned into some good learning paths for me.
Thank you so much for that. And you're right. Sometimes you walk in thinking you have that expectation of I have to know and do everything, and what are the expectations of the employer of my skill level? So that's a great point. And then, it turned into learning opportunities. So that, hey, I can still learn in my first professional position. So thank you for sharing that perspective. So Haven, for you, tell us what, you felt was the most challenging, or some of the challenges that you faced, in that transition.
Sure. So I guess this kind of has something to do with it, kind of not. I completed my bachelor's degree through working my job. And I was the youngest on my team, pretty much at the organization, in total. And I had a lot of ageism issues. I feel like there were a lot of adults, and I don't want to say everyone at my organization was like this, but I think that there are certain adults and people in certain roles at your job that see you as a recent college grad, or see that you're still in school and that you don't bring as much to the table as they would, or that somebody else on their team would. And that was something that I experienced, and it really deterred me and kind of broke me down a little bit from trying to say stuff, or trying to take on new things, or trying to stick up for myself. So kind of going back to confidence as well, because you're like, oh, you're right. I don't know as much as you, or I don't have the experience you do, but I still have experience. And, what I might have is new ideas or new ways of doing things that you don't, because you've been here for 10 years and, all this kind of stuff, and the world has changed and all of that. So I would really say confidence, just sticking up for yourself, and no matter what they're saying or however you're feeling, to still kind of stick up for yourself and just make room for yourself at the table if there isn't any, because that's what we have to do. That's what you have to do. So that, as well as sort of like Nicole said, trying to learn the job, right? You feel like you have to come in here and know everything, and that if you don't know something, they're going to be like, oh, well, we hired you because you thought you would know this, or whatever else. That too. And there might be some people who expect you to know something, or be like, oh, I thought you did know that. Why didn't you? And handle it the wrong way. But again, it's sticking up for yourself. And it's like, I don't know this, but I'm absolutely willing to learn. I'm absolutely willing to put all the work into it that I need to, but I just need your help in kind of paving the way and showing me how to do that. So, end all be all, sticking up for yourself, confidence, stand your ground, and make room for yourself if you need to.
Thank you so much, Haven. I love when you said, make room for yourself at the table, being at that table. And, the takeaway is, from what I'm hearing you say, is that advocacy and that confidence. And that advocacy part, I think, could be really hard as a new professional. So, thank you for highlighting that aspect. And building confidence and, being at the table, and it's okay to be at the table. You're there, you deserve to be there. So, thank you for that. So Tyler, for you, you had an internship, that led to your employment, right? So, tell us though, what was the transition like for that?
Yeah, so going back to what Nicole and Haven talked about, I would definitely say confidence is a really big issue I had going into both my internship and my full-time job, because I was on different teams with each position. Going into the internship, I knew nothing about insurance, and I was expecting the employer to think that I was supposed to know everything about insurance, which of course would be insane to be expected of. But going into the job feeling confident and being ready to learn and asking as many questions as you can, it shows that you care and that you're interested. And I feel like your manager is more interested in you feeling comfortable at your job and wanting to get better at what you're doing, and just taking it as a learning opportunity. Moving into my full-time job, I was on a different data team from where my internship was. It was a completely new job for me as well. And again, just going and asking my manager and my teammate or team colleagues as many questions as I could when I didn't know something, and just trying to learn as much as I could in my first few months was really important for me. So
thank you so much for that. And, that what you said about, asking questions, and that learning curve, you're so right. So even though, and that's, I love that you two talked about, you had the internship and you were hired by the same company, but you were on a different team. So, that is definitely something that can happen. So, it's getting acclimated to same company, but it's a different team, different people. So there's that acclimation too to that. So thank you for that. So I'm going to hand it off to Christina, who's going to ask the last question for the panelists. So Christina.
Okay, so last question that we have prepared for you is to answer. Is there anything that you would have done differently to prepare for life after college? Maybe there is, maybe it's something career related, maybe it's something less career related, but we'd like to hear what you would have done differently, starting with Hannah.
So for me, I think not maybe super differently, but just a little willingness to like go with the flow of how things happen, I think goes a long way. I think when I thought I was finishing school, I kind of had a plan of what I thought should happen, what I thought the next few years were going to look like. And it doesn't always work out that way, but I think you find yourself that maybe it worked out a better way than you had even really realized initially. So being able to be flexible with those changes and like not be down on yourself, like, oh, I didn't like move away, or like I'm not in a big city, like things like that. I think it's okay to be able to like give yourself some grace on what you thought you were going to have in the first couple years after school, and it might not look exactly like you thought it would, but I think there's still a lot to appreciate about where you end up currently. So I think just giving myself a little more like, it's okay that it didn't go exactly as you planned, but like look where you are now and you're enjoying what you're doing and it worked out as it should have, and it feels right now. But then it was like, well, I don't know, do I want to stay in the area? So I think just like giving yourself that room to say that it might not be exactly as I thought, but there's still a lot of good things that can come out of it, and keeping that perseverance is a lot of what I think I would have changed.
Thanks for sharing that great perspective that, yeah, it might not look like what you first thought it would look like, but it's okay where you are, and maybe it's still great. So thanks for sharing that. Okay. Maddie, is there anything that you would have done differently as you were preparing for this transition?
So there is. As I said earlier, when I was answering another question, I explained that for my full-time job, basically my uncle told me there was an opening at this company, and that is all I did. I wish that I would have looked for or applied to at least one other job, but I didn't. I had stuck in my head that I was just moving back from Virginia from my internship. I was like, I just want to give myself a break, try to enjoy my last semester here. I don't want to start the job search until October. Then this opportunity came around. I was like, well, I can't not apply. It's a position I want in my hometown. So I had to apply. I applied. But I wish I would have, applied to other places so I could see what other opportunities there are. I could have seen, what other positions like I was applying for, what they were offering, for a salary or vacation, things along those lines that would have helped me be able to negotiate and just see other different opportunities. I didn't do that. I absolutely love my job. I love my team, but I do wish I just would have seen the other opportunities. So that is something I would have done differently.
Thank you for sharing that somewhat, a little vulnerable experience. But yeah, it's good to hear that even though you like what you're doing, it's good to know what else is out there, helping with negotiation, just seeing what else is a possibility. So thank you. Nicole, do you have anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, touching the question about preparing for the interview process, I felt somewhat more confident, but I think if I were to go back, I would have taken advantage of the Career Center and with some type of interview prep in whatever way that looks like, whether it's mock interviews or information. So even though I was prepared in my own strength and what I could do, I think I would have been a little bit more confident walking into that interview had I had taken advantage of that resource on campus. So that's definitely something that I would have done differently.
Sure, thank you. And we do offer both virtual interview prep options with a software system, mock interviews. So definitely a lot of resources to help students as they're going through that process. So it's scary to interview. So we want to try to help people be more confident and comfortable. Okay, Haven, anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, kind of going back to what Hannah said, I was very hard on myself of just like trying to get as ahead as I could, right? I wanted to get a job. I wanted to make sure I had something that was stable. I wanted to build my skill set. I wanted to move up. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was just so focused on that. And have always kind of had this mentality of I have to have it figured out. And if I don't, like the world's going to end kind of thing. And I quickly learned that it's really okay if you don't have it all figured out right away. And we're kind of not supposed to have it figured out, right away. We're 20, 21, 22 when we graduate, right? It's okay to take time and figure things out. And I would much rather figure things out and have a fit that's right for me or somewhat right for me than something that's so completely wrong for me. So definitely just taking the time to figure things out, and where you end up is where you end up. It's not permanent. And just being less hard on yourself, as well as applying for positions. I think a lot of us look at positions and we're like, oh, we're not qualified because we don't have these two things or this one thing. And in the end, a lot of that stuff is really just like guidelines and things that they have to put down and things like that. And I'm not telling you to apply for an engineering position if you've never done a day of engineering in your life, but to just apply and just see what happens. The worst thing you do is you get a rejection email, but then the best thing is you interview, you get experience with that. Every interviewer is different. Every company is different. I've had to give presentations on interviews. I've, had to just sit there and answer questions, right? So the experience just helps. And I wish I would have done more than that rather than just turn myself down and be like, oh, no, I'm not qualified.
Thank you. That's also really great advice for everyone to hear, because we can be hard on ourselves about, oh, I'm not qualified for this. Why even bother applying? But you never know what might happen. So, okay. So Tyler, wrapping up the last answer to our last question, is there anything you think you would have done differently?
I think there's a couple things I would have done differently. The first thing, I definitely would have utilized the Career Center as a resource during college. Just from what everyone else has said, it seems like there's a lot of resources they have that can help you with interviews and resumes and all of that kind of stuff. And I think I definitely would have benefited from that. The other thing I would have changed, I had that full-time job offer before I even finished my degree. So I think I definitely would have seen other options before finally accepting that offer and seeing what else was available before accepting that as well. So
yes, thank you. Definitely some themes here of keeping your options open and not having everything 100% figured out right when you graduate. So thank you all for sharing that personal information. And now I'd like to turn it over to Bridget to see if we have any questions from any audience members.
Sure. And thank you again to every one of our panelists. We loved hearing about you and your experiences and how you got to this point, and some things that were challenges or things that went really well. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules, and know that it really has benefited our current students, who will, some of them, be very shortly in your shoes, graduating and making that transition. So thank you so much. So at this time, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop it into the chat. So at this time, we'll open up the floor for any questions. So we do have a question. So in regards to LinkedIn, what are things we should be posting / sharing to help reach out to potential employers and recruiters? So projects, internships, part-time jobs. There was a lot of mention, in the previous question, that many of you, if not all of you, utilize LinkedIn. So, so if you can expand a little bit upon that, and just what is it that students should be posting, sharing based on what was beneficial for you?
Sure. So I mainly used LinkedIn to connect with, oh my goodness, a variety of different people. So people from a university, people from potential companies that I was interested in. And then I tended to post like big things that were happening. So Sunny, in your case, different projects that you're doing, post the outcome of that. If you do go to like a career fair, take a picture of it, post it online, like tag the people that you connect with in it. Definitely, I feel like it's going back in the days of like hashtags and stuff, but like those help to like get some engagement into your post and some more visibility, and not being afraid to connect with people that you don't know and reaching out that way. Because I've had a couple of people since starting at Erie reach out to me saying, hey, I'm interviewing for an internship there. What would you give me recommendations? And I'm like, yeah, I have no idea who you are, but you connect with me on LinkedIn, so I'll give you some tips. So I think I would say those different things would be helpful. Any fun thing, anything that you learn, even an article, you can share those different things.
Thank you so much. That's such great advice, Nicole. Making it, because a lot of times students think that, LinkedIn is a professional platform, for people, actively, as professionals, not students, but there is so much you can do and connect with so many people you can connect with on LinkedIn, and so much you can do as far as posting and sharing as a student. So thank you for that insight. And Hannah, so, what's your feedback for that question?
So for me, a lot of too is just that kind of goes back to that networking. One of the first things I did was kind of go around and follow a lot of the businesses and things in the community, and other people that I knew were working in their field, seeing who they're connecting with. It ends up kind of like almost like a little research project when you're looking around to like seeing what your friends are up to, and then when you see what the company they end up at, you follow that company. So it kind of just builds from that, and commenting on those things. If there's people that you know that are in your field working in the communities that you're in, comment on their posts and say like, this looks really nice, like ask them questions, interact. I think everyone's kind of been through the experience of having to get out into the job market for the first time, so people are more helpful and like willing to talk to you, and just that's what the site is there for. And I think most people know that and are willing to kind of like lend a hand when they see that you're first starting out. I've had people for mine that just like reached out in messages and be like, hey, like I saw you're a graphic design student at Edinburgh. So just being able to like accept those kind of advances and like make some of your own, and say like comments and say like, hey, I really loved what you did on this like logo project or whatever it may be in your industry. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a big post of your own if you don't feel like you have much yet. There's still other ways to kind of utilize the platform without something that feels like as committal as like your own post. Sharing things from your industry. I think my first couple posts on LinkedIn are me sharing like the Pantone color of the year that they announced, which is like something I get really excited about. So I was like, I'm going to share this. Everybody needs to see the color for the year. But yeah, so just things you're interested in, things that you think are cool that are related to your field that are going on. And also too, utilizing your friends kind of with a cool to do for those like recommendations and stuff. LinkedIn has a lot of good features where you can say like, hey, I worked on a project for you. Can you write me a review, or can you endorse this skill? So having those up there and kind of using the connections you've made with your other students to kind of boost you up a little bit to start too is, I think, really beneficial.
Thank you so much, Hannah and Nicole. That's fantastic advice and fantastic ways for students to engage. So Maddie, I saw you do a lot of head nodding. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
I just agree. At first I was kind of drawing a blank because I was like, I don't know what I posted or what I shared a lot of, but as they started speaking, I was like, oh, I did that. So I posted a lot of any type of achievement. So when I got an internship, when I finished an internship, I highlighted the projects I worked on and the time that I had there. I also had a lot of connections. I tried to have all the connections at PennWest, back to networking. And then when Hannah mentioned commenting as well, I realized that when you comment on people's stuff, like then they click on your name and they see, oh, you're a human resource generalist at American Axle. Oh, well, maybe you can come here. So there's just a lot of networking opportunities. And I think they both had great answers. I agreed with everything they said.
Good, thank you so much. So just wrapping up, Tyler, Haven, do you have anything that you want to add or, to that question?
Yeah. So I think touching on what everyone said, I think sharing your projects and things like that at school. I mean, and I will admit that I knew nothing about LinkedIn. It took me forever to learn. It took me forever of like what to post, right? You know what to post to Instagram and Facebook and everything else in your stories, right? But you have no idea what to post to LinkedIn. And is this work appropriate? Do I involve my personality in this? Do I involve my personal life in this? That kind of stuff. So I think it takes a while to like learn. So don't, get down on yourself if you're like, I can't figure out LinkedIn. But I think that showing what you're doing is showing a lot of transferable skills as well. And that's what employers like to see. So you can, you're completing this big 10-step project and you have all these timelines and deadlines and you're getting it all done, then you have to present on it at the end, right? That's great for project management and project coordination, which is what lots of jobs have, right? And if you're looking into a field of project management and project coordination, like there you go, right? You're kind of showing that off. There's lots of transferable skills and just showing employers that you can do a bunch of different things or that you can hone in onto one thing is really good, even if you feel like it's not professional, because it doesn't always need to be professional. And employers know that as well when you're graduating. I'd also say utilize the open to work feature on LinkedIn, because I totally thought that got nobody anywhere because you're just like tagging your profiles open to work. But I will say I had 3 friends that got jobs through LinkedIn through posting about that. So even if you feel like it's doing nothing, just do it, because it doesn't do anything bad, right? But just put it out there. So those 2 things.
Great suggestions. And, I love that suggestion of open to work and, how you had people that had success, with that and, through LinkedIn. So, Tyler, do you have anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I would agree with what everyone else has said, but I would also add that in the profile section on LinkedIn, make sure you have like your updated resume in there, and also in the skills and experience education sections of your profile, just put any kind of skills that you've utilized in your classes or any other jobs there as well.
That is a fantastic, again, suggestion, because that's critical when people review your profile to have as much information as possible. And as a student, there's a lot that you can put, like class projects and things you're doing in clubs and organizations. So you're right, Tyler. Thank you for that. Okay, it does not seem like there are any other questions at this time. Again, thank you to everyone who attended today, and thank you to our attendees. I know this was so beneficial for you as you are on your journey here at PennWest. So thank you to our alumni panel for your time and for being accessible and helping, other PennWest students, or for helping PennWest students. So thank you so much.